Good morning, friends. Good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you're listening in from, or whatever time. Hello, salutations. Welcome back to the Checkin In podcast. This is episode number 115. Today, Thursday, the 16th of December, 2021. It's getting cold and, yes, it's just not comfortable here in Calgary, but such is the season. I think winter is finally, of course, set in, but glad to have you guys joining in for however long you're able to. This is the podcast that I love to spend time on every morning. These past few mornings have been getting briefer and briefer because I got to skedaddle to work. Julian, my friend, good morning. Hello, El Haj. I got your message, Julian. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I just haven't been able to get some time in between getting home from work and so on like that. But thank you for the message. I did get it. I would love to follow up. Well, friends, like I said, this is a podcast where I usually spend some time, some moments every day reflecting, thinking through, strategizing, planning. How can I become a better person? And I do this primarily by way of self reflection questions that I was following a sequence of questions for some time, but I've started branching off and doing my own questions and things that pique my interest. And as I ask and think through these questions, I learn more about me and how I'm wired, how I'm made, how I tick, and how I want to move forward in a way that is on purpose. One of the phrases I use, hello, Khaled, nice to see you, my friend. One of the phrases I've been using is, how can I live life on purpose? That is something that is it resonates so deeply with me because I think so often in life we sort of just coast. We sort of just go through life as it is, and it's like, okay, we just saw a day go by, a week, a year, a few years, a decade, and we are none the better because we haven't actually seen it and savored it. Three key pillars: awareness, kindness, and happiness. Those are the ones we focus on as we delve into these questions today. Let's get right to it because I do have to run off in about 15 minutes or so. Before I do, let's talk a little bit about cynicism. Today's word of the day: cynicism. The question I'm asking is, how do you deal with cynicism? How do you deal with cynicism? What is cynicism? It's that sense of expressed self interest that breeds distrust. How's that for a definition on the go? Cynicism, it has some negative connotations, right? It has some negative connotations whereby, as you think about this word, it's not a good thing for someone to say you're cynical. It's not like it's rarely often considered like an attribute that's wonderful. But the question we're asking is, how do you deal with cynicism? What is cynicism? I'm proposing that cynicism is that sense of observing in someone their self interest on display. And as they're doing whatever they're doing to further their purposes or agenda in a how can I say this? In a way that meets their needs, they're doing it in a way that really breeds distrust from others around them. This is a question I like asking some of my Uber riders when they were in my vehicle, especially, especially if they're in fields of work or careers that they see a lot of really discouraging things along the way. So uh, I wanted to address that today because I'm not sure if some of you might be in that space in life, if some of you might be in that zone whereby the more you see of the world, the more you experience the world, the more you're on the receiving end of various scenarios and circumstances. I wonder if some of you might also not be struggling with cynicism. So, cynicism, from my understanding, is one of those experiences that doesn't elevate and bring up our hopeful forecast of the future, but one of those that actually detracts from it and brings it down. And so, I'm interested when I see those kind of influences in life. I'm interested because excuse me, I'm interested because I want to see how we can realign that ship, if if you will, realign that ship so that we can move on towards something more hopeful. I love being hopeful. I like settings where the forecast is sunny, not cloudy. Unless you love rain, then you of course love cloudy forecasts. But I want to be aware and study as best as I can, reflect on those opportunities whereby we're able to look with hope, with growing sense of optimism, which I think is like one of the um, antonyms, like opposite meanings of the word cynicism. I like those kind of forecasts that are optimistic, that are hopeful, that tend to give us a bit more juice in our tank to be able to keep pushing forward. But when cynicism is at play, I think it does some alternate things whereby we feel depleted, we feel discouraged, we feel like there's not much um, need to keep pushing forward. So that's why we're talking about this question. How do you deal with cynicism? Now, when I had the opportunity to ask this question to some of my Uber riders, especially those who are working in challenging fields where they see a lot of the troubling aspects of humanity, fields such as, for example, lawyers who that's what they do. They deal with like the messiness of humanity for the most part, right? Um, um, trying to deal with the mess that our world is because of our engagement, or fields such as peace officers or police officers who, hello, Jakes, who also see the really challenging part. Have you ever thought that these individuals, especially those in law enforcement, they rarely get called for the good things to be a witness and to celebrate that? They are often, if not overwhelmingly, always called to attend to really, really challenging circumstances where they are in the middle of conflict, where they're in the middle of trying to apply the law. And over time, I can't help personally but imagine how this can be challenging for the psyche, how this can be debilitating for one's perspective on life. And so I cut them a lot of slack along those lines because it's not an easy thing when all you're seeing are the frowns of those that you're serving, where all you're experiencing is the expressed frustration and anger and all those other negative emotions, especially in relation to what you're doing for work. I can't help but think how challenging that is. It can't be easy. So my hats off go to those individuals who are in such settings, and that's why I like asking them this question. How do they deal with cynicism? Cynicism that this world is a good place, that this world can be a good place. Because for a lot of them, they're finding it challenging, right? Me, on the other hand, because I get to deal with the other side of humanity for the most part, like I would say 99% of the people I get to interact with are generally positive, kind, courteous, and pleasant to deal with. And as I engage with them on an ongoing basis, my forecast is not very cynical at all. In fact, I don't have much cynicism in relation to people or circumstances. And I think that has to do, Jake says, sorry if it's been asked, but have you, as an Uber driver, had any encounters with law enforcement? I only once when I did an illegal U-turn at a traffic light, and I just got someone. So I'm like, oh, let me take a quick shortcut here. I did a quick U, and then I saw the police at the other intersection there. I'm like, oh, there he is. That's the only time. So I got a ticket for illegally turning at a traffic light, which is not permitted here in our part of the country. So that's the only one I've gotten. The police officer, as he comes back on my ticket, he's like, "You're such a pleasure to deal with, but I got to do this." I'm like, "I know. Carry on." So that was the only time I've had an encounter with law enforcement. Of course, I've gone through a few road checks, and they've just kind of waved me through because they saw that as a professional driver, as an Uber driver. So, but because I deal with such pleasant people on an ongoing day in, day out basis, my forecast is far more optimistic, and I'm just really enthusiastic and hopeful and optimistic when I think about people in general. And so there's a contrast there. But my experience is not the common, I think. I think a lot more people deal with a fair mix of both both challenging and promising circumstances and people along the way. So the question still stands though. How do you deal with cynicism? Here's a response that most who are in law enforcement and also in the health field as well have given me when they say it's really challenging. Even waitresses as well. I ask this question of waitresses because sometimes they're on the receiving end of some difficult settings, right? And so as I interact with them, they're often upfront and saying it's not easy. It's really challenging, actually. And for most of them, it's been a long time, perhaps even years before they have, since they last experienced the opposite of cynicism. But it's something that has kind of developed over time and become this exterior hard shell that enables them to sort of block out a lot of what they have to deal with. And in blocking it out, it also dampens that sense of feeling and trust and hopefulness and all those other potentially wonderful things. And they just don't have access to it, sadly. And so that makes me sad when I hear it. But how can I encourage you in this context? Roadrunner, my friend, how are you, Brandon? Good to see you. Brandon has been busy in the east side of the country lately with MAD conferences, if I'm understanding correctly, and so he is one of their spokespersons. He is the survivor of a horrific accident where he was T-boned. The vehicle he was in was T-boned by an SUV, and so he's got a fantastic story. Let me just give him some love. Roadrunner142 on Instagram. That's where you can find him and hear more of his story. It's pretty epic. How do you deal with cynicism? For me personally, I think it's easier to deal with because I don't see a lot of the crappy parts of life. I interact with far more of the good side, it seems, where it's a pleasure, right? But when I do have challenges with being hopeful, I think one of the things I remember is my expectations. I could be cynical easily. I mean, I do. It's not that I have rose colored glasses on and I'm just kind of walking obliviously. I do see the challenging parts around me. When I see it, I think I mitigate it by setting my expectations at a realistic level, whereby I'm able to say, hey, these are people just like me. They have their own walk, they have their own decisions they're making, they have their own lessons that they need to learn. And in the midst of all that, I want to give them that space, that margin, whereby they can still be human and fumble the way forward, just like I needed to do once upon a time. That for me is really critical to be able to extend that sense of, hey, you're trying to figure it out just as I am, and I want to make allowance that you as a fellow human being are going to mess up sometimes in royal ways, in bad ways. But how can I make that space so that you also can mess your way forward? When I set those parameters and those boundaries and those expectations that give me lots of space to say, I don't want to be surprised by people in general, then I'm able to sort of take the crappy side of humanity when it's on expression with a bit more grace, whereby I'm saying, hey, this is what it's like to go forward. Hi, I hope you're having a great day. Alex, my friend, thank you. Good to see you again. That's one way that I mitigate the draw towards cynicism, where I just throw up my hands and say, this world is going to hell in a handbasket, and I just gave up on it. I don't want to go there. I don't want to arrive at that spot. So I'm actively prepping myself to say, how can I, even now in the meantime, prepare for that? So that's an important thing for me. How do you deal with cynicism, my dear friend? So I would love to hear from you. I would like to hear your experience. Perhaps you're in the midst of cynicism at the very, very depths of it, and you're drowning in it, and you don't know if there is much hopeful forecast in your setting as you're looking at your circumstances. Well, something that really helps, I find, is talking to someone about it, talking to someone about the frustrations, the observations, the things that get you down, the things that drive and feed your cynicism. When you're able to talk and process with someone, it just gets it out of your system so that you can maybe hear another perspective, perhaps, or just feel that you've been listened to. That's a really strong and powerful element, too. So being in community is really helpful. So that helps you become aware of who you are and where you're at. It helps you also to remind yourself, hey, in the midst of me struggling in this way, how can I continue to be kind? To say, I'm not a write-off. I can still experience and feel. That's one thing I think cynicism kills is it kills that sense of feeling at the very core of your depths, all the emotions. So you can, yes, experience happiness, but all the other ones as well, which are just as crucial. Those emotions that we are designed with are important to express because they help us communicate what's on the inside based on what we're experiencing on the outside. So critical. So, my dear friends, perhaps you are in the midst of cynicism for good reason or maybe not. What is it going to look like for you to become aware that you are in that space and to start making some plans to start exiting out of that space in slow incremental ways where you start learning and believing that it is worthwhile to believe and hope again that there is something better and it doesn't have to be as it is right now. I am so driven by such forecasts where it's like we're still in the race, we're still in this game, we're still fighting our way forward because that is what we do as human beings. We struggle our way forward, we make those steps. So important. Friends, it's Thursday. I'm not sure if I'll be back on Friday. I'm not quite sure because I have a super early morning tomorrow, but have a great Thursday for now. If not tomorrow, I'll see you on Monday. Love you guys.